Hey everybody, welcome to Options with Hans. I'm Hans Albrecht, of course. I was a pro options market maker for 15 years and then an options income fund manager for a decade after that. So offense, defense, long options, short options, only getting a check for 15 years if I made a profit. That is how you learn this game. That is how you learn to respect every single dollar when you know you're not going to get paid unless you make a profit, not like some cushy institutional job where you get hundreds of thousands of dollars to take shots and who cares if you don't make money, right? So anyway, please like and subscribe, grab that free options cash flow blueprint in the description below. That's going to get into the very, very beginnings of options and lead right into my favorite ways to generate income. And today we're going to talk about an area that I think is really, really cool, a little bit more on the aggressive side. And before we do that, of course, everything today is for educational purposes only. Your trade, your responsibility. And if you're okay with that, let's dig right into Bitcoin and all the various cool ways that we can trade it in markets now. So of course, if you don't know what Bitcoin is, go check out a video on that. But basically, MSTR is it's called Strategy now. It used to be called MicroStrategy, run by Michael Saylor. And it is essentially, it's a software company, but it basically, that software part of it is relatively meaningless. It just basically invests in Bitcoin, right? Just keeps buying Bitcoin. It borrows money to buy Bitcoin. It issues convertible paper to buy Bitcoin, etc. MSTX is levered MSTR, so it's 2 times MSTR. So think of MSTR as levered Bitcoin because it often trades between sort of 1 and 3 times the underlying value of what they hold in that company for whatever reason. It could be, multiple times, right? If you want to buy Bitcoin, you can just buy Bitcoin. Sometimes you have to pay 2.5 times the amount of Bitcoin in MSTR, but people love Michael Saylor and they love the possibilities and all the things that he promises and the financial engineering that he presents as value add to the company. MSTX is 2 times leverage on that. So it's leverage on Bitcoin. So it's crazy stuff. But I think there's some interesting trades here. We talked about my SOXL maybe, I don't know, 5-6 weeks ago. And I said, listen, there's a time where you can get into these levered products. You have to be very, very comfortable with how they react because they've got that leverage decay. But sometimes it just gets going. And the momentum can be really very powerful. So I mentioned get into these, that you could get into these trades weeks and weeks ago. May 26th, in fact, I've got written here, buy 10 contracts of the Jan 2026 calls in SOXL, which is the levered version of the 3-time levered version of the SOXX, so the semiconductor index of 30 names, 255 on those. I got into 258. And then I said, if it pulls back, keep adding to that. So they got cheaper. They probably got into like 160, 175. Well, guess where they are right now? They are at $8, 805 bid right now. So 300% win on the initial and probably 400 to 500% if you kept adding like I did on pullbacks, because SOXX and SOXL pulled back. I bought stock, I bought calls, I bought all kinds of stuff. So this is something I really believe in. I'm not going to get into the why and semiconductors and all that. I've gone over that many times, and you can check out my other videos on those things and why I'm very, very bullish in this area in particular. So I think it's a very, very exciting time, and I think we're just kind of getting going in some ways. So these are trades that are really, really starting to fire on all cylinders. We've got other trades, of course. I just sold out some Robinhood leaps today. So in our leaps trader, this is what we get into. Leaps. There's leaps trader core, there's leaps trader AI, and there's leaps trader explosion for those trades that can really, really move and for smaller accounts. Robinhood, I got out of these almost 300% win. Now, I will tell you that's not usual in such a short amount of time, right? This didn't take long. It took a couple months. But in fact, we have some trades that have done well in Leaps Explosion. We've got a Goldman Sachs trade, which I put in the Leaps AI portfolio as well. You might be wondering, well, Goldman's not an AI portfolio. Yes, it is. It's a name that has very good exposure, and that's why people are starting to discover it. So if you want the trades before they happen, I talk about them. $120 ago, I said, listen, Goldman is going to have deals, it's going to do IPOs, it's going to benefit from all kinds of things. AI is going to compress costs for them, and it's going to expand margins, and et cetera, et cetera. I did a whole video on it, so check it out. That position is, since June 18th, is up 104%. And then there's another one that we've got in our regular Oh, here's Robinhood Markets, 294%. So we've got Goldman trades and Reddit trades and things like that. Reddit, I think, is kind of exciting as well. I'm going to do another video on that. I won't talk about it a ton right here, right now. But these are the things you get in Leaps Trader. I'm going to talk about Leaps Trader after you go through MSTR. I want you to learn about what I'm thinking here, and then we're going to get into this particular trade that I like. And in the program, you get these kinds of emails where I tell you exactly what I'm thinking, why, what's the thesis, what looks very interesting, and you can decide to get involved or not. It's of course your trade, your responsibility. But we've got trades that are just absolutely killing it over the last few months, and it's amazing. It's not always going to be like that. I'm not going to lie to you. This is a good period where if you're in the right kinds of things, you're doing very, very well. So that's what we're trying to do. I have a very deep history in technology, Oxford AI, Ivy League MBA. I've led an entire suite of these kinds of funds for years and years, these AI funds, robotics, things like that. So we understand what's going on out there. And let me get into MSTR right now. So first of all, why Bitcoin? Well, I've covered this in other videos, but listen, it comes down to a few simple things. Money supply is exploding, right? We can see there's been really no serious effort to rein in spending, to cut the deficit. It is, horse out of the barn. We are just going to spend, spend, spend. You can see that basically money supply in blue, as it just keeps going. This is a lag here, 90-day offset. You can see as it soars, interest comes back into Bitcoin. Money supply goes sideways, interest in Bitcoin wanes. Money supply starts to take off again, and interest in Bitcoin takes off again. Again, this is now a very, very big, different kind of world out here, right? We've got Bitcoin inflows. 15 days of an inflow streak, right? So we're really still pulling in lots of money into the space, right? So a lot of institutional money. So this is not your Bitcoin of old. This is not an underground kind of, stick it to the man kind of thing. Bitcoin is here in a very real and institutional way. It's being adopted in a very, very popular way. And there's room for people to probably increase their allocations. So there's still room for that to expand. But in terms of institutional adoption, it is kind of horse out of the barn. So that's what makes it a little bit exciting as an investment. But having said that, I think it just is kind of risk on, right? It's, the NASDAQ, it's leverage, it's too much money in the world. It's a piece of all of those things together. So that's really what it is. So let's move on to some of the interesting stuff in options. Okay, so let's look at MSTR. So clearly we've seen it kind of come off the bottom here from those difficult days in April. We've come off, and Bitcoin is really sort of stabilized, right? So we saw it in the 70s, and it sort of shrugged this off. I made a little money in here. I missed out an opportunity in here, but we've sort of been kind of going a little bit sideways, and option pricing is really, really compressed across the board. So what we have now is this potential ability for money supply and all the things I'm talking about to kind of keep the ball rolling, keep the party going. And if we get a move into sort of the 430, 440 range, and we break these highs, I think there's a real possibility that's obviously going to come with a big move in Bitcoin, and it might be off to the races, right? So MSTX is going to give you that ability to really lever up that move. So remember, it's leverage on Bitcoin. So this is the kind of thing that if you get a sort of measured move to the upside, you could have the compounding actually help you. So you remember, just like the SOXL trade, I hadn't touched that thing in 10, 11, 12 months, and then suddenly it made sense to me. And that's why I still believe in the trade, and it's done fantastically well. But this is sort of a similar concept. It's a 2-time leverage instead version of MSTR. So it's not for the faint-hearted, but look, it depends how this move happens. So when we sort of put estimates on where this trade could profit, you have to kind of make some assumptions, and you don't know the future, and especially you don't just not know the future, you don't know the path that we're going to take in getting to that particular place in the future. So if it's a very, very choppy up move, up 20, down 20, up 20, down 10, up 30, down 20, that kind of thing is going to cause some chop and some leverage decay. That's why some of this performance here just can't come back from MSTR performance, because it's gone. That doesn't mean this thing can't get back up here. there, but it's going to take one heck of an MSTR run to do so. So the idea is that you're going to do well on this thing if it steadily goes up, but if it's very, very steady, then you're going to do even better. You can almost think of it as kind of like compounding on itself. It's almost the square of MSTR. It rises, the performance kind of rises at an exponential rate. So very, very exciting. You could get into the position I'm going to show you in a moment, and it could be a 10, 15, 17 bagger kind of thing, like, 15 times, 17 times your money. Not advice, but it's the kind of thing where if this thing really wants to get going and things get silly in the world where things may be heading, then this is something that could potentially do very, very well. So let's take a look at some of the positions. You can see here kind of breaking out a little bit, a little dipsy doodle yesterday, but coming right back again. And we'll have to see what Bitcoin does. It's actually looking very, very resilient. So in the community, in Leaps Trader, everywhere, you're going to get this. So we're sort of monitoring this, and we started to get that breakout. And so as everybody's sort of catching on a little bit, members are getting the alert. So bought the December 500 calls, $34. These are actually $41.50, I think, on the close. So you're actually already up over 20% on these, 21% just from this morning. And that'll pay for your membership how many times over? I mean, just on a one lot, you just made like $700. And so basically, and then also you've got this other trade that we put on, which is the one that really gets me excited, right? So I got in on these. They're going to trade a little bit higher at this point, but the trade is still very, very, very much valid at this point. And what we're going to look at is a couple of things that help us to kind of come to the conclusion that this could be very explosive. This could be a very interesting trade from a number of angles that you don't normally get with other stocks, right? So this thing, as I said, if we really do get that momentum going on MSTR, this could probably go 110, 120, maybe even higher if things get sort of stupid on MSTR and things start to break, right? So there are people who are shorting MSTR, buying Bitcoin, they're doing all kinds of things. If that breaks to the upside, it's almost like a clamp breaking, then it can become Looney Tunes time. Like things just don't necessarily have to make sense. As I said, it trades kind of 1.7 times NAV, but who knows? Maybe it could go to 3, 4, 5 times NAV. We don't know what could happen in that kind of sort of GME, AMC type environment. So, okay, so first off, MSTR term structure. So all that means is, where are options priced today, next week, next month, 2 years from now kind of thing, et cetera, et cetera. We can see that it's upward sloping. So this is not like your typical NVIDIA. Some of those things are very, very cheap, very favorable term structure. That's what gets me extra excited about those ones. That's why we have them in our portfolio, and they're doing fantastically well. But in this one, they're pricing in something crazy happening over time. So they're not stupid. They're doing what they should be doing. But that doesn't take away from my excitement too much, because I look at the option pricing at the 30-day mark. We can see things are starting to get a little bit excitable to the upside, right? So that's a sign. It hasn't blown out yet. Once it blows out, that could be a sign of a top. But it's just kind of getting going again. And what I want to show you is longer term option pricing. So let's take a look at this. This is kind of fascinating. So we really had a very quiet period where they just keep crushing that option pricing. Got down as low as 60, 64, 65, and now we're back up to 67. So by all measures, we're very, very low historically on this particular name. And they're probably, the company's probably going to wait for better pricing in order to do more of those convertibles at this point. But at this point, it's very, very cheap in a sense that I think a couple of interesting things could happen if this thing plays out the way I think it could, which is an explosion to the upside, which is going to be accompanied by an explosion in implied volatility, right? So we don't normally see that in a Microsoft and NVIDIA unless they start going parabolic, right? We did see some parabolas after the election, but at this point, that's not normal behavior. In MSTR and then the Bitcoin complex, it is normal behavior. You often see implied volatility option pricing expand into these explosive upside moves, and that gets me very excited, because if I can get in down here, as I am at these very, very low levels of option pricing, if it explodes, we're going to have 3 things working for us. We're going to have our delta, which means you're just long, right? Your long calls, your long delta. It's not complicated. If you're short something, you're short delta, right? So you're going to be long delta, so you're going to take advantage of a directional move, but you're also going to have number two, an explosion of implied volatility, which I'm 90% sure is going to happen. Because when these things start to move to the upside, everyone feels that FOMO, wants to get in. They're either protecting short positions or they're just wanting to go long and not miss out, et cetera, et cetera. You're going to see this really start to move. Not to mention when the underlying starts to move more, it justifies higher option pricing because that's called realized movement going up. So we're going to see an explosion of option pricing and we're going to see an explosion of skew. So right now, if you look at skew, it's really not very expensive. So here, check this out. This is skew. So all skew means is how are the out of the money puts versus the out of the money calls? Is there a big difference, right? Typically, they're not the same because of the fear of the downside in most products, right? So they price those puts very high. Well, in this case, you can see those upside isn't really pricing in very much excitement to the upside. So even way out in these longer term options, you can kind of see that they're not that expensive, right? The market's not really saying, listen, I think this could be crazy the upside. Like it's the scale is a little bit misleading here. So this is going up a little bit, but you can see the 90th percentile of skew, meaning how high can that skew trade? It's traded a heck of a lot higher, right? So it can be much higher than this. So again, as I said, you've got this delta, which is your directional trade as you get with a long call, you're going to benefit to the upside. You get that implied volatility, that option pricing that could explode on excitement and a melt up. And then you've got the skew that could explode higher as well. So you've got three different things that could sort of come together to really create this amazing potential profit opportunity in a trade like this. So in my view, based on my calculations, I think if this thing could get to maybe the trade that I gave members today, I think you could sort of turn this into maybe 13, 14, 15 times your money if you're patient, if this thing plays out as expected. But really, you don't find a lot of potential trades like that out there without trading kind of like a zero DTE or something very short term where it's going to give you that explosive potential if you're right. But if you're wrong, you're just going to lose your money, right? You have the benefit of time on your side here. So that's a very important part of the way that we do things. So I think for me, that's extremely exciting. It gives you breathing room. It lets you sort of see how things unfold over time. And then if they don't go the right way, then you can always set your 50% stop or 40% stop or whatever it is you want to put on that. It's up to everybody to make their own decision. So I think this is a really exciting trade. I believe in the semiconductor play as a fundamental play much more, but this actually has more potential upside in a way than the SOXL because it could be Looney Tunes time, right? Like it could just be kind of mind blown, everything going bananas to the upside. And that's going to make this very interesting. So hopefully our biggest problem is deciding how much of a gain we want to take as this plays out. So hopefully you guys learned a little something there. The trade for me is basically I'm in this. I'm in it to win it. So I don't want to mess around with MSTR at this point. Although I gave people different trades to do. We did a bit of both. But for me, where I'm really leaning into is something with a little bit more pep here, which you're going to get in the program. So let's take a look at the program quickly. Okay, so allow me to just pitch a little bit here. This is really a fantastic product, series of products. And today's bundle is unbelievable. I think it's one of the best things I've ever offered, the best thing I've ever offered outside of my mentoring, which is 1 year, very expensive. But this is the next best thing for an absolute fraction of the cost. Here's our portfolio: 164, 129, 66%, 52, 35, 79, 294. That's the one we closed today. 200, almost 300% on that one. 60%, 37, 49, etc. So lots of great stuff. And this doesn't even include Leap's explosion. So we've got a whole bunch more. We've got 100% one in there, as I mentioned earlier, in literally like 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks now. So the Hedge Leaps Trader program is the July 4th sale is on right now, our super bundle, which you can get at optionswithhans.com/pricing plans. I'm going to put that down in the description. And you get Hedge Leaps Trader Core, Hedge Leaps Trader AI, and explosive leaps. Leaps explosion is what we call it because they have these potential to really explode. And we talked about one of those today in MSTX. That is really exciting. They're rarely something much more speculative like that, almost never. But sometimes they are, but a lot of the time they're going to be your standard names, but just very nice explosive way to play those names. So what you get this week is for $14.97, you get the Leaps Trader program, which includes all three of those products. Crush the Premium, which is the enhanced income system with risk management. It's unbelievable. It's one of the best things I've ever done. Vol Ninja, the best thing I've ever done. Okay, I keep repeating myself here, but Vol Ninja is the very, very best thing I've ever done because there's nothing like it on the market. From somebody who's done volatility arbitrage, who traded options as a market maker, who understands this stuff inside and out in ways that very, very few other people understand. This is really all of that distilled into an incredible course of insight. This will change the way you look at everything. Even if you don't trade options, it'll change the way you look at everything in markets, trading, and investing. And then the Nomad, which is amazing, Iron Condor's income strategies with very, very strict volatility volatility sort of limits around that. So amazing stuff. And then also this, for this July 4th deal, I'm going to be offering a live 2-hour session. It's probably going to go 3 hours, to be perfectly honest. I'll go all day. It doesn't matter until you guys figure this stuff out. And I'm going to show you how to do all of these things, how we go about them in the program. And you're going to get all these things, the enhanced income course. You get an MTI indicator, which everyone is clamoring for. This is the thing that tells you when to step on the pedal, when to go a bit more income, when to get, to get out. This thing got me out of the market at 59.97 before the market fell 1,000 points. I kid you not. I've mentioned it in a number of videos. I showed it on the chart. And then you get the options bootcamp. So if you don't know anything about options at all, this can't start any more simple than the options beginner camp. So it gets you right up into some of the cash secured puts, covered calls, things that I ran hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars worth for many, many years, gets into those very, very insights that I use to manage those products. And then the see right here, I say 3-hour session in July. So it's a 3-hour session in all likelihood. And then on top of everything, you get 1 month in the VIP Trading Floor community, which is $100 a month and going up soon. But you get a special discount as a student. Once you buy the bundle, you get an exceptional discount into the trading room if you want to continue on in there. Not just a small discount, it's a big discount. So check it out. Go to optionswithhans.com/pricing plans, or check out the address I've put in the description and in the comments. And it is going to be fantastic. We would love to see you. It's been phenomenally successful. People are loving it. You get chart packages, you get all kinds of stuff on a regular basis to keep you in the know. And I am constantly keeping you in the know. There's nothing like this. I've seen a couple other services which are a complete joke when it comes to leaps. They give you like 2 trades in January and sayonara, we'll see you next year kind of thing. It really is something else what people are kind of pushing these days. You get the very best, and ask around about me. Google me on the internet. I'm everywhere doing exactly what I said I've been doing my entire career, almost 3 decades in the trenches, frontline options trading. Not the last couple of years because my cousin gave me a special method that's going to make you a fortune. No. Don't worry about stuff like that. If you want to do stuff like that, enjoy, and I'll see you in 6 months when you reconsider, if you have any money left. So, okay, guys, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed that, and we will see you in the next video.